Welcome to Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and today I got another great episode for you. But before I get into that, I want to thank my listeners out there for all the support that they've been giving me. Keep it up. Like I say always, I'm trying to get those numbers up, right? Y'all keep helping me out. Thank you for that. I really appreciate all the help that I'm getting. But in this episode, I'm going to be talking about how, law enforcement officials unintentionally promote criminal behavior. I don't think that they really look at it the way that I do. But I'm going to try to explain that to everybody and break this down a little bit on how I think law enforcement, and when I say law enforcement, I mean police on the streets, the courts, the prison officials, all of those individuals to me fall under the banner of law enforcement. So I'm going to talk about how I think they unintentionally promote criminal behavior. Now, in prison, a lot of y'all may not know or be aware of this if you haven't been in prison or you don't have a loved one that's in prison. In prison, we have these labels like offender, prisoner, convict, inmate, stuff like that, right? That is attached to the people that are in the prison, right? And a lot of people in here believe that it's more favorable to be considered a convict versus an inmate, And this terminology is something that we, use within ourselves, but the people that are in charge of the institutions, they use this language as well, right? And it dawned on me one day when somebody that, in my opinion, unintentional, I'm gonna say that, I'm being kind when I say unintentional because it would be a sad commentary if they knew what they were doing psychologically and they continue to do it anyway. So I'm gonna just say unintentional, right? But anyway, when they use that terminology, those labels to me are slave labels. Those labels to me promote criminal behavior. For example, I'm gonna give you an example. Like a lot of times you'll have individuals that are in the institutions or whatever the case may be. They'll come and talk to certain inmates and say, look, such and such is gonna happen today. You might want to watch yourself, be careful, don't have nothing in your room, this and that. And then I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, why would you come and tell me that? Or they would tell me to look, watch this individual, he's a snitch, and so on and so forth, right? And I'm saying to myself, okay, if I'm telling you that I'm living a law-abiding lifestyle and I'm following all the rules and regulations, what would be the need in you coming to tell me that? Why would you think that I would need to know that? There's only one conclusion that you can draw from that. They believe that I'm still involved in criminal activities, which I'm not, but they believe that I am. They believe that I'm walking both sides of the fence, right? And that's just not how I live anymore. But in that, they are promoting criminal activity. These labels that they give us, these labels have an expectation of criminal behavior. It's like putting you in a box. For example, it's just like when you call a female, and I'm trying to quit cursing, but forgive me for what I'm about to say. I just need to use this terminology in this episode so that you get the fullness of what I'm trying to say, okay? But it's just like if you're calling a female, a woman, a bitch, right? That label, that word has an expectation attached to it. It means what? Somebody that is what? However you want to define bitch, okay? But we know that's meant in a derogatory way most of the time, right? Just like when somebody calls you a nigger or a cracker, you know what I'm saying, or whatever the case may be. Those labels have derogatory connotations to them. So when you talk about in prison and outside of prison and all of these other, and when they use this terminology, they are setting an expectation, a low bar for the individuals that they attach these labels to. You understand what I'm saying? And with expectations come results. If a person is being viewed as a convict, an inmate, a prisoner, an offender, you know what I'm saying? Then that's what they're going to perform. That's how they're gonna act out. Psychologically, they may know that they're not that. But after you hear this over and over and over, you become sort of brainwashed into believing that this is who I am. This is what's expected of me. If I'm a convict, I'm expected to live my life like this, this, and this. And that all leads to you opening yourself up to criminal thinking, criminal behavior, this ideology that keeps people involved in this lifestyle that has no good for them. You know what I mean? And that's what I would say when I talk about people in law enforcement that unintentionally promote that type of behavior. There's nothing wrong with referring to a person that is in prison or gotten out of prison as Mr. or Mrs. such and such, or whatever their first name is. You know, call me Joe or call me Mr. Baker. But when you call me inmate, offender, prisoner, convict, and all of these things, I understand what you might be trying to do. But you're causing more psychological harm than you can imagine. And most people in blue, like me, don't even realize what's being done to them. But psychologically, you end up becoming what everybody says you are. And if we want to stamp this thing out, this criminal behavior out, if we want our community to be safer, we have to do this on all levels. And this is just another one of those subtle ways that crime continues to creep in and keeps people off balance. And we got to stop doing that. I think they're even trained to refer to us like that. Don't refer to them. I think this is how the training goes. Don't refer to people in prison by their name. You know what I mean? Call them offender, prisoner, convict, inmate, whatever the case may be. And that psychologically does something to us. And most people don't want to accept that. You would not like it if somebody at your workplace out there called you a bitch or lazy or whatever. Labels have consequences. Labels have an expectation of that behavior. So if we want people that are incarcerated, people that are not incarcerated, just people in our neighborhoods, we have to start to referring to people in a way that is not derogatory. This transcends prison. This is in our communities as well. We have to start using terminology that is not derogatory towards one another. There's nothing funny about it. It's psychologically damaging. And most people do not even understand what that is doing. But back to the issue, the immediate issue of crime. This is one of those ways that you, the citizens out there, can contribute to stopping crime in your communities. Stop using these derogatory labels towards each other and one another that promote that type of behavior. You know, we even do that when we talk about gang members. You a Crip, you a Blood, you a this, you a that. Those labels have an expectation of a certain type of behavior, right? So we got to quit doing that. And if we do those small things, then you'll start to see some change. What is wrong with calling somebody by their name? I don't get it. I would hope that people start to understand what I'm saying, and I hope that this has been something that has been educational for you. I don't want to just always do shows that are down and talking about people or whatever the case may be. This is one of those episodes where I believe that people in the community can make a difference just by changing the terminology, the language that they use towards one another. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.